What is up, you awesome kisters? It's CistReactZ here, guys. Today we're checking out, could Elliot Ludwig be the prototype? So make sure you guys hit that like button, subscribe to Poppy Theory, and comment down below. Cause yeah, I don't know who could be the prototype at this point. Elliot Ludwig, could be Lathe Pierre, hell, it could be Huggy, and that's just Huggy's little puppet. Let's
prototype?
see.
Is it possible that Ludwig
I don't even
actually wasn't dead this entire
I'm the prototype
time,
at this point,
but instead found a way to live on through the prototype? It might sound far-fetched at first, but when I actually show you what I'm talking about, you might be just as curious as me. And this whole theory hinges on one fact. Elliot Ludwig is Poppy's dad. It's first hinted at in Chapter 2, but not somewhere that you'd expect. In Chapter 2, Poppy says that she has the train code that leads out of the factory. So
Chapter 2 felt like a lifetime ago, man.
Until she's taken by Mommy Longlegs. She takes the train code from Poppy and says that in order for us to get it back, we'll have to go through 3 different mini games in the game station. But after we beat all 3 of them successfully, she crashed out and tried to kill us.
Crashed out.
We managed to make it into a room with a working grinder, which kills her. After this, we free Poppy, but she is talking like an absolute psychopath. She sounds like she has something she wants to say, but isn't saying it.
Yeah, like someone's controlling her and shit.
She walks off. We see that she's keeping her eyes on us, almost as if she's intrigued by us. And so once we make
it's kind of crazy how like 2 chapters have come out and I just cannot remember if Poppy actually had that aura ever again.
Make it to the train and enter the correct code, we eventually make it to a crossroad. But just before we're about to leave, Poppy switches the track on us and says that we're too perfect to lose and that we could help her with whatever plan she has.
But you saved me.
Like, she never had this aura ever again.
Too perfect to lose. I'm sorry. I can't let you leave.
I just broke the glass and hopped out of that train. I don't got time for that, man.
Do you know how long I've been stuck in that case? Well, too long.
Later in Chapter 4, we figure out what her plan was, but what I'm mainly focusing on is her dialogue in Chapter 2. In it, she doesn't say anything that hints to her being Elliot's daughter, but that's because it's the unused dialogue that I want to look at. In the files, fans managed to find what seemed
of course y'all find things in the files, man. How do y'all do that?
Poppy saying different lines after switching the track on us, but the most important line
I mean,
is
I'm not
that
looking
she
too hard
says
when I do
she's
it.
the cause of all of this.
You have so much potential. I know you came to find the ones who had disappeared all those years ago. But they're gone. They've been gone for a long time.
Damn.
Terrible things have happened. And I am the cause. Being able to exist as a doll, it has killed so many people.
And you might be wondering how this means that Elliot is Poppy's father. Well, if we look at the tape we find in his office, we see a documentary which explains how Elliot made Playtime Co. so successful. But in the documentary, it quickly mentioned that Elliot lost a family member who was very close to him. Now, I'm not saying this to be rude, but if Elliot's second cousin died, they would not have mentioned it. And
that's
so
crazy.
Whoever Elliot had lost, it must have been someone very dear to him. And it doesn't seem to be his wife, as they divorced due to his extremely work-focused lifestyle. And it probably wasn't one of his parents either, as the language they used to describe his lost loved one wouldn't match.
In the 1960s, an unfortunate family death had pushed Ludwig down to his lowest. But with so much ambition, he rose back up and continued to fulfill his vision for the Playtime Co. toy factory. Ludwig could never be content leaving a project unfinished.
Which leads me to believe it could have been one of Elliot's kids, but more specifically an adopted daughter. Playtime Co. is centered around children, but also a huge portion of the factory is centered around orphans, with Playcare probably costing hundreds of millions of dollars to build. It's a huge dome-like structure with smaller buildings inside of it, like Home Sweet Home, the school, and even a gas production zone to help the kids fall asleep. And
It's actually insane that they just developed gas for that, man.
Wife in 1930, while the Poppy toy was made around 1950, Poppy would at least be in her 20s by the time of her transplant.
God
But
damn.
if she's Elliot's adopted daughter, this would match the themes of orphans being dear to Playtime Co. And it makes a little more sense for Poppy, as she would have been transplanted at a younger age. By the way, quick side note, let's say Poppy was 10 years old when she was transplanted. That would make her around 65 years old now, because if she was made around 1950
that is
and we come
crazy.
back to the factory in 2005, she is old. But none of this is concrete proof until we look at
Like,
a
no,
chapter
I need to play that part twice. Like, that's heavy emphasis on old.
around 1950 and we come back to the factory in 2005, she is old. But none of this is concrete proof
Grandmother
until
age.
we look at a chapter 4 tape named Untitled. After Doey crashes
Title.
out and he chases us down some caves, right before some rocks collapse, you can reach past them and grab a tape that you can play after killing him. In the tape, we hear that Poppy
They're
is
so
talking
casual
about the
how
hour
he
of
said
joy.
that.
She knew it was coming, but didn't necessarily know it would be this bad. And because she's so upset, she says that if her dad were here, he would know what to say. And that when he used to run the place, he always knew what to say.
It was awful. So awful. I thought we were gonna leave. Leave the factory. Not this.
Bro, I know it's like an extreme oversight to think about it, but like when they use like the adults and the kids for the transplant, like I'm assuming they just put like brains and stuff inside the toys, but like what do they do with the bodies? Do they just bury them underground? So there's just like a bunch of skeletons and stuff under Playtime Co.
Prototype says we can't leave. Not now. Not ever. I hate him.
Like
I
if the
hate
police
him,
investigated
and
that
I hate
place.
this place,
Whew,
and I hate that he...
that should be crazy.
Right. I wish you were here, Dad. When you were running this place, you always knew what to say.
Yeah, I remember this tape.
Miss you.
Now, who is the only person who used to run the place? Yes, you. I'm talking to you. Who used to run the place?
Me? I don't.
Thank you, Elliot
Yeah,
Ludwig.
yeah,
but
you're
to
right.
push this theory a bit further, when
I'm
we
paying
freed
attention, I
Poppy in
promise.
Chapter 1, we tried to leave in the beginning of
I almost dumbly said Leif Pierre because he surprised me so much when he said, me, the viewer, has to answer a question.
Chapter 2, but the way we came in is blocked off by a bunch of furniture. However, we
Everyone,
managed
my
to
big
leave
chance.
anyway through what seems to be a special door that leads to a room. And guess whose office is right next to the special door that leads
Oh,
into
damn.
her room?
That's crazy.
Yes, I'm talking directly to you.
Again? Elliot
Thank
Ludwig.
you, Elliot
I
Ludwig.
see, I got the chance
But
this
you
time.
might be thinking, if Poppy is Elliot Ludwig's daughter, then what does this have to do with Elliot Ludwig being the prototype? Well, that leads me to the phone call that we hear in the end of chapter 4. I know it wasn't just me who noticed that the prototype was saying some pretty weird stuff to Poppy, saying that it's always been about what they are. He tells her to come home, and even the bombs go off after she leaves.
Your collaborators. With you, you have
I'm surprised he set the bombs there that quickly,
What are
honestly.
you going to do with me?
I've got something special in mind.
I prepared it just for you.
And this one, you will never want to leave.
No, you've lied to me!
Only because you've kept
Missing the point. I
Missing the point.
I'm disappointed.
After all that time in your case, I'd hoped you'd see things
Differently. Don't you understand?
It's always been about you.
So creepy, I was just mimicking all the workers, man.
What we air. That's not a truth that can be burnt away. No. Not when it can mean so much more.
Please,
It's time to come home.
Poppy,
What's even more convincing is the fact that he threatened to kill both us and Kissy, but only threatened Poppy with being put back in another case. So if the prototype clearly wants to keep Poppy alive, but doesn't care about Kissy's life, then he doesn't care about Poppy because she's an experiment, but rather because of the relationship they have together, or as he likes to say it, what they are. But if the prototype is Elliot Ludwig, then this would mean that he orchestrated the Hour of Joy and even killed Catnap. Wouldn't this contradict Elliot's character that we see sprinkled throughout the game?
I was just about to say that.
If we go back to chapter 3, during the hallucination sequence, we hear a series of radios that all talk about a child's body that was found at Elliot Ludwig's house.
Tragic news this morning. As of 9:45 a.m., local authorities report that the body of a young boy has been found on the estate of the late Elliot Ludwig, an esteemed toy maker and originator of the Playtime company.
I forgot about this. The PT scene.
Innocence. Many believe his reclusive and mysterious nature displayed over the previous decades lend suspicion to this claim. When questioned, Ludwig's neighbors indicated that he would often return to his home in strange hours of the night and depart again before sunrise.
And if this is true, which the game leads us to believe it is, then Elliot wasn't necessarily the child-loving man as most people remembered him, which would then account for him killing Catnap. He's willing to kill others if he has a purpose for it, which would also explain the Hour of Joy, because in it, he kills all of the scientists who were experimenting on the orphans, but yet he kept the orphans alive in the labs. And Poppy even tells us in Safe Haven that they're in some form of cryosleep. But even if those aren't contradictions, then why does Poppy say that she hates the
Oh, I didn't mean to mute it, but why did I not process that information? Bro, if they're all in cryosleep, wouldn't they be like technically all the same age as Poppy, but just they still look like kids because they've never aged? That shit's crazy.
Contradictions, then why does Poppy say that she hates the prototype, but she misses her dad in
That's some Fallout 4 shit.
Well, this has to do with how Playtime Co. experiments were made. Whenever an experiment was recently transplanted, they go through what's called an adjustment period, where they get used to their body and are inclined to commit violence at any given time. And with the prototype being one of the first successful experiments, hence the name the prototype, it's possible that if Ludwig was turned into an experiment, he could have changed and became a whole new person, being more self-centered and willing to commit violence, as we see with the Hour of Joy and the killing of Catnap. And Poppy might even be aware of this, which is why she makes the distinction between the prototype and her real dad. But what's even more interesting is that the prototype's arm isn't entirely mechanical. If you look closely, his forearm contains what seem to be human bones. Now, this isn't too much of a surprise, as we know that all of the experiments contain human body parts, but it does make the prototype somewhat human, since initially you might think that the prototype is a purely digital creation similar to an AI, but because he's an experiment and we see human parts on him, he's more likely a fusion between the two. He has mechanical parts, but he probably also has human organs that keep him alive. And this would also make sense with the note we find in Elliot Ludwig's office, where he's talking about the uses of the poppy flower. Now, we don't know for sure that it was Elliot who wrote this note, but because we find it in his office and it was written a very long time ago, it's very likely that he wrote it. And in the note, it talks about experiments 814, a rat that Elliot tried to bring to life using the poppy flowers. And so if he wrote about experiment 814, then it's possible that all the experiments between it and 1006 was their way of getting ready for transplanting Elliot. But what gets even more weird is that in a tape we hear of a conversation between Harley Sawyer and the prototype is talking about some kind of experiment that they're doing doing in the labs.
But you have no staff, virtually no test subjects. It's hardly ideal conditions. Even when this place was fully operational, we were beating our heads against this. You can't expect to do it on your own so quickly. The situation necessitates it be done quickly. I'm just giving you the facts. And the fact is...
Yeah, honestly, if it was Leif Pierre that was the prototype, the doctor would have so much damn beef with him too. Like, because he put him in the damn... He digitalized his consciousness, so I feel like those two would be beefing hard. There's just no damn way that he would just work with the prototype that easily. I keep forgetting that fact.
Time, or this isn't going to work.
And because Sawyer says that they have virtually no test subjects, but not zero test subjects, it's possible that they're doing some form of experimenting with the orphans, as we know that they were kept down in the labs. So Elliot doing experiments on the orphans already doesn't match with what we know him as. But again, from the radios we hear in our hallucination in chapter 3, they could explain why he was experimenting on them. And so all of this evidence points right to Elliot being the prototype. He may have changed a lot in personality with being more aggressive and violent, but he still keeps some of his other traits such as care for his daughter Poppy. And if we look at the chapter 4 phone call through this lens, then it makes a lot more sense with some of the things that he says. He tells Poppy that it's always been about what they are, which in my opinion is referencing the fact that they were some of the first experiments, and every experiment from then on stemmed from their successful transplants. But more importantly, it's referencing the reason for their transplants. The first being Poppy, where Elliot managed to revive his daughter, and although we don't exactly know why Elliot would be transplanted, it was likely due to his old age and him seeking immortality. But then the prototype says that he thought Poppy would have understood something by being in her case for such a long time, which literally sounds exactly like a parent growing their child who would say, I thought you would understand after I grounded you for 2 weeks. But instead of grounding, Poppy literally got shoved into solitary confinement for probably years. However, if you're immortal, being locked in a case doesn't necessarily mean anything, but it does mean one thing. If the experiments can live on forever, we see that they still need food, as Dewey being one of the most advanced experiments still needed to eat. We see this with Pianosaurus, as he literally eats this dude in 3 bites and says this.
How do you just eat a toy and then just get sustained, bro?
I haven't eaten in weeks.
Weeks is crazy.
And so
everybody has probably eaten in years, man.
For years, as she suggests, she would have been a rotten corpse by the time we found her. But since the prototype was the one who put her in there, it's possible that he was feeding her the entire time, trying to keep her alive, which would show that he does care about her. But to put the nail in the coffin, to seal the deal, to absolutely and unequivocally show you that Elliot Ludwig is in fact the prototype. Y'all just listen. Everyone get close.
We're getting locked in.
Lean in.
We're getting locked in.
Okay, we're good. Poppy should have died in the safe haven explosion. She should have went kaboom. In chapter 4, after we fix the generator, Poppy tells us to go plant the explosives and tells us to meet back at safe haven once we're done. And we go plant the explosives, but
and she wasn't there?
We could make it back to safe haven, the entire place explodes. And in the phone call, the prototype heavily suggests that it was him who planted the bombs. So if Poppy told us to meet back at safe haven, suggesting that she'd be waiting for us there, but yet she survived the explosion which the prototype made, could this mean that the prototype somehow warned Poppy that it was going to happen? I mean, the prototype did warn
or
Poppy
just lure
that the
her
hour
away.
of joy was coming.
That's crazy.
So he could have easily warned her here as well, further showing that the prototype cares about Poppy's life and doesn't want her to die, but instead wants her to understand something. And although it seems seems that Poppy hates the prototype because she literally tells us that we're going to blow up the entire factory, including him. It's possible that she's trying to get back at her dad for what he's done in orchestrating the Hour of Joy and also the experiments that he created, including her. But what do you guys think? Let me know down in the comments. Thanks for watching, subscribe, and click on this video right here.
Man, I don't even know. I don't even know. The body at the house though, that does sound weird, but like, I mean, when you work at a company that like basically takes in a body every 4 weeks to experiment on it, someone could have framed him. But again, with me saying that and still kind of leaning towards Leif Pierre while saying that, it can't be, because yeah, the Doctor and Leif would just be beefing the hell out of each other. Like they would just be trying to kill each other every 5 minutes. Like me personally, I would not let that go if someone put me in a screen for my whole damn life. So yeah, I don't know. Or hell, who knows? Maybe the prototype is really just like all the crazy ass scientists put into one. Like seriously, like they could just be really crazy doctors who want to join in on immortality, and maybe that's why it can mimic 1,000 voices. Who knows? Who do you guys think the prototype is? Let me know in the comments down below. And great job, Poppy Theory, for the theories. I was really locked in. I didn't talk on some points because I was just listening. I was locked in. Peace out.